The sun was barely rising when I stepped onto my porch, coffee in hand, ready for another quiet morning on my ranch. But instead of peace, I saw rows of white folding chairs glistening with dew. Dozens of them. A long floral arch stood in the middle of my field, my private land. Two strangers were hauling speakers across the grass. Another man was hammering wooden stakes into the soil like he owned the place. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a prank. This was a full wedding setup. I marched toward them. "What the hell are you doing on my land?" A woman in a headset turned around, irritated. "Sir, please don't disturb the decorators. This is a high-budget HOA wedding ceremony." HOA. Of course. Before I could reply, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. Janet, the HOA president, better known around here as the Queen Karen, stepped out from behind a catering tent. "Oh good, you're here," she said with the confidence of someone who wasn't trespassing. "We needed more space for the wedding venue. Your ranch was the natural choice." I stared at her in disbelief. "You didn't ask me." She smirked. "We voted. Majority approved. So you planned a full luxury wedding on my ranch without permission?" "Yes," she replied, "and we need you to stay off the property until 9 p.m. I put my coffee down, cracked my knuckles, and said the word she never expected. "Janet, this wedding is about to end before it begins." To understand why this moment made my blood boil, you need to know the history. The HOA had been trying to sink their claws into my ranch for years. I owned 14 acres, the only open land left in the neighborhood, a place people actually respected before the HOA turned into a dictatorship. They hated that I refused to join their association. According to them, I disrupted neighborhood uniformity. According to me, they were power-hungry busybodies with nothing better to do. Over the last 2 years, they tried to force me into HOA membership, failed. They tried claiming my land was community-adjacent property, court laughed them out. They fined me for excessive grass height, I didn't even live on HOA land. And finally, they accused me of blocking community trail access, which didn't even exist. So when I saw a giant floral wedding arch sitting in the middle of my pasture, it wasn't just disrespect. It was war. Janet strutted around barking orders to the workers. "Move those chairs. The bride wants a wide aisle." I shouted, "Get off my property." She waved me off. "Tom, calm down. This is happening whether you like it or not. Everything's scheduled: DJ, catering, photographer, over 100 guests. You can't ruin this. Wanna bet?" I stormed toward the decorators and unplugged their sound system. Music screeched to silence. Workers froze. Janet stomped over. "You can't do that. Wanna see what else I can do?" I said, kicking one of the stakes loose. "Stop," she shrieked. "You're destroying HOA property." "My ranch," I corrected. "My rules." She pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the HOA security team." I laughed. "Call the sheriff instead. You'll need him faster." Guests had started arriving early. A couple dressed in wedding attire gasped as they stepped out of a car. A photographer frowned. Caterers whispered. Janet pointed at me dramatically. "That man is sabotaging a sacred event." I raised my voice. "This event is illegal." Then I grabbed a folding chair, folded it, and dragged 5 more into a pile. People gasped. Janet screamed. One decorator fainted. The wedding was collapsing before it even began. Exactly how I planned. A white limousine rolled up the gravel driveway, kicking dust into the air. Out stepped the bride, dressed head to toe in shimmering lace, veil dragging behind her like a cloud. Her face fell when she saw the chaos: toppled chairs, shattered vases, fallen flowers, and a furious HOA president waving her arms like a malfunctioning windmill. She rushed toward Janet. "What happened?" Janet jabbed a finger at me. "He did this. He destroyed your wedding." The bride looked at me, then the sprawling ranch around her. Why would you do that? I crossed my arms. Because your beloved HOA planned a wedding on my private land without permission. She looked at Janet, shocked. Wait, you didn't get the landowner's approval? Janet scoffed. I told you, we voted. It's community property. No, I corrected, it's my ranch. Paid for. Registered. Fenced. Posted. Private. The bride's jaw dropped. Her groom stepped forward, voice trembling. We spent thousands on this setup. Then you should have asked, I said calmly. A simple knock on my door would have saved you a fortune. The bride turned on Janet with fiery eyes. You said this was allowed. Janet stuttered, I was trying to help. The HOA. The HOA doesn't own everything, the bride snapped. You ruined our day. Guests were arriving fast now, and with every car door that opened, more gasps and whispers filled the air. Someone shouted, Is this seriously on private land? Did the HOA lie again? This is illegal. The groom looked defeated. The bride cried into her hands. Janet looked like she was melting under the sun. This wedding wasn't just collapsing. It was exploding. Right when the arguments reached boiling point, a familiar sheriff's cruiser rolled up my driveway. Same deputy as last time. He stepped out, sunglasses on, already shaking his head. You again, he said to me with a raised eyebrow. Didn't call you, I replied. They must have. The bride ran to him. Officer. He destroyed our wedding. The sheriff held up a hand. Hold on. Start from the beginning. I pointed at the fallen decorations. These people put an entire wedding on my ranch without asking. The sheriff sighed. Ma'am, is this true? All eyes landed on Janet. She gulped. The HOA voted. That's not a yes, the sheriff cut in. She tried again, we believed we had implied access. Not how land ownership works, he said firmly. You trespassed. You damaged property. And you attempted to host an event requiring a county permit. The bride gasped. There's a permit for this? Yes, the sheriff said. And you don't have one. Everyone stared at Janet like she'd grown horns. She shrunk into herself like a failing balloon. The sheriff turned to me. Tom, you're within your rights. Next time maybe call us first before demolition. I'll consider it, I smiled. He faced the crowd. This event is shut down. Everyone off the property. The wedding was officially dead. And I didn't even need to finish tearing it down. By the next HOA meeting, the entire neighborhood was buzzing. The wedding disaster had spread like wildfire. People demanded answers. Some demanded resignations. Inside the community center, the board sat stiffly behind folding tables. Janet looked like she hadn't slept in 48 hours. I took the microphone. I just want to thank the HOA for using my land, I said loudly. Because without that, none of us would have discovered how far you'd go to abuse your power. Murmurs erupted. A man stood up. Janet, did you really plan a full wedding on his land without permission? She stammered. I thought it was best for the community. No, a woman snapped. It was best for you. Another neighbor added, you fine half of us for petty things. But you break the law? The room erupted. By the end of the meeting, Janet was removed from the board. The HOA apologized publicly. And new rules were written to prevent future land misappropriation. My ranch was finally safe. A week later, I took a walk to the field where the wedding had been. The ground was quiet again. My horses grazed lazily near the fence. The wind was calm, the sky clear. Peace restored. Rusty the dog trotted beside me as I leaned on the fence. A neighbor walked over. Tom. I heard what you did. Honestly? Glad someone finally stood up to them. I nodded. Sometimes the only way to teach respect is to take back what's yours. He smiled. Think they'll try something again? Not after what happened, I smirked. As I looked across the open land, my land, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Ownership. Authority. And peace. Sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's simple. Stop letting people take what's yours.